Hello, this is Hervé from Comic Book Bin, filling you in since 2002. Today we're going to be looking at Copperhead. Copperhead was the water moccasin pilot, the Cobra hovercraft from 1984, mostly known as a pilot, a racer who bets for money, joined Cobra to pay off his debt from the bayou in the southern United States, Florida, Everglades, and so on. Like many other Cobra operatives, Hasbro released this Copperhead action figure without the signature water moccasin and just announced that there was going to be the Python Patrol Copperhead. Now, I'm not exactly sure why they released the actual Copperhead before the Python Patrol version. Who wants the Python Patrol version when we have the real version here? And I would have probably waited and released the Python Patrol version first and waited for maybe the viability of a water moccasin and then release Copperhead with the water moccasin. But that's not how Hasbro decided to do things. So you know what? I've got a Copperhead and I'm quite happy with it. So if you have not been living under a rock lately, you know that one of the most popular boats in the 1/12 scale to use with classified Marvel Legend action figures is of course the Fortnite Victory Royale boat. A lot of other collectors have used this boat for Copperhead because it kind of looks like a little bit like the hovercraft he used to ride way back. This is how Copperhead would look on this boat. And until Hasbro produces a water moccasin, this is the best thing we have. Copperhead is one of the nicest Cobra action figure for a while. Well, he's not major blood level, but he's good. He's kind of tan, and as you can see, he's got that crazy helmet that he used to sport way back in the 1980s. But because back then he was a pilot, he didn't come with much gear. Now, the Python Patrol version came with the gear that was assigned to Leatherneck. So that was a backpack and an M16. This guy comes with his own gear, a machete, handgun, and obviously another weapon, which kind of looks like Megatron, that you can use. One issue with Copperhead is that the plastic used on the figures gear for that series is quite cheap. So a bit like Star Wars Black Series figure, it may not be easy to lock the gun in here. Same thing with the handgun. So he really looks like the old Copperhead action figure. This is part of the current Hasbro design philosophy to make everything look like the 1984 or 1980s toys, because the first generation of G.I. Joe Classified were not liked by many fans because they did not reproduce exactly what was there before. So they've decided to play it safe and make everything look like the original toys with a few custom changes here and there. That's what we have with Copperhead here. Although I will say that he looks great. I don't have any complaint, even though he does look like the old character very much. They've added enough touches that he's unique, including this nice tattoo here, which represents his addiction to gambling. Well, one issue I do have is that the original plastic for his torso is green, which means that they painted the torso, but the color doesn't match at all here. Another layer would have been necessary to cover the green underneath. You can still see the green peeking through, and it's not the right skin tone for the rest of the figure. This would be my major complaint with Copperhead. Let's look at his face closer. Yeah, Copperhead looks nasty and tired, but as you can see, right underneath his eyelids here, they forgot to paint some parts of his face gear. The little bumps here and on the other side should have been green or something like that. It's not that they forgot to paint them. They should not have painted them, I should say. Good articulation so far. Okay. So this series was much more flexible than the other one. Not as gummy, but what happened is that the gear on all that series, so that includes bazooka, rock and roll, shipwreck, torpedo, the equipment is much more flimsier and cheaper. It's not the same good plastic that we've had before. Not that the plastic that we had before was great for the equipment, but it wasn't this cheap. Now this is really cheap here. So the flap here on his bicep, they tend to fall all the time. So this is one of the reasons. That's what happened when you have flimsy, cheap plastic. I can't quite tell if the plastic here was reused from someone else. The shoulder here could be the same as Dr. Mindbender. I'm not sure exactly. Obviously, he's a pinless figure. That's good. I'll have to check my Zartan to see if he's reusing parts from Zartan also. The shirt doesn't seem to be reused from Roadblock or anyone else. I like the look for Copperhead a lot. It's got good articulation. The neck, good enough. Not perfect. It could be better, but it's good enough. Shoulder do rise up a bit. Not more than 90 on this side. Obviously swivel. Like I mentioned, these these keep falling all the time. Part of it, the problem is the shape of the tricep, which pushes them down all the time. But if the plastic was better, they would stay in place. Just like Falcon earlier, he has a smaller gun that is sculpted in, so you can't remove it. Although you can remove this one. I would say it's kind of a bummer. I don't like when they do that. Everything should be removable. As you can see, it's very cheap plastic and soft. It's already bent. It's always been in there. As soon as I got it, I put it in there, but it's been bent from day one, so it's gonna go back in there. There's no point for this flimsy gun to be free. There's a lot of details on his belt. Very nice detail. Reminds me of Zartan, but it's not the same head sculpt for the dreadnoughts. You can see that the strap is very loose. It tends to fall easily. Obviously, Copperhead has the usual G.I. Joe classified articulation, so a good 90 degrees and a drop down hip, which I dislike the drop down hips. It's so funny because when those figures just were released, I loved those things, and now I find them more an impediment. He's got a very good knee articulation, but I find that the lower articulation is stiff, so I have to hold it in place before I twist it, and then I can twist the upper one, but not good enough to hit his own buttock. Same thing on the other side. Gotta hold the knee in place first, bend this guy before I can bend completely. It feels like it's gonna break. It's not gummy, but it's almost. Obviously swivel the calves, and very good, very good articulation and pivots. Here again, I don't want to stress them too much. They feel a bit that they're gonna give up. Put this back Megatron. I'll call this guy Megatron. Put back Megatron in there. And that I need to give it a little bit of a gap here. Show you how I'm doing this. There's a little bit of a gap here, so you need to push the gun further down. Then you can close it like that. Yeah, obviously I should have given this thing a bat. I did not, but that would be the best thing to do to hold it into place. Again, like I said, these things are flimsy, very flimsy plastic, could break at any time. Don't stress it too much. And unlike Bazooka, there's a reason to peg this holster on his back. The machete is nice. That's the only blade he has. He doesn't have a smaller personal gun, but that's good enough. Flimsy plastic. Yeah, flimsy plastic, alright. It's Copperhead. One of my favorites as a kid. I didn't think that he had enough involvement in both the cartoon and the comics, except with Operation the Dragonfly, when he became the leader of the Python Patrol. That's when he became more used and more popular with the whole G.I. Joe Cobra universe. This is Copperhead. He's a shorter dude. This is his buddy, Prop Master. I guess they hang out together. Fiona is somewhere else. It took me a while before I reviewed these. I've had those for over a month now. I was busy, I guess. Vacation time also. I like Copperhead a lot. I recommend you getting it. They should be hitting the United States right now. Canada had their Copperheads way ahead over a month, almost 2 months ago now. But I recommend those figures a lot. It's just a good toy. It's another win for Hasbro. Like and subscribe. And this is Hervé from Comic Book Bin, filling you in since 2002.